If your business owes money to HMRC, this video could be the most important one that you watch this year, because in 2026 HMRC enforcement has changed, and it has changed fast. They've now got more staff to chase the money, bigger budgets to chase the money, better data to understand who owes the money, and stronger legal powers than ever before. And the government is pushing HMRC to use it all to close something called the tax gap. Now, the tax gap is the difference between what HMRC thinks should be paid and what actually gets paid. And right now, this is coming to you in April 2026, it's over 46 billion quid. And here's the part most directors don't realise. The biggest chunk of that money is tied up in small businesses, which means HMRC are being told very clearly, go and get it from people like you. So what does that actually mean? Well, practically speaking, you're probably feeling it. You're getting more letters. You've got more phone calls. HMRC is escalating a lot faster. And it can mean HMRC enforcement agents at your premises, your assets being seized, investigations happening. And if nothing gets resolved, winding up petitions. They're getting sent faster than ever before. And in some cases, and this is the one that catches a lot of people off guard, it can mean you, the director, being made personally responsible for tax debts that you thought would stay inside the limited company. Now, by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what HMRC can do to your company, and more importantly, what they can do to you personally. And I'm going to walk you through each stage of enforcement. And I'll show you what you can do today if HMRC is already on your case. So let's start with what's actually happening inside HMRC. So a few years ago, HMRC moved pretty slowly. If you fell behind, you could often buy time, drag it out, kick it into the long grass and sort of deal with it later when hopefully your business has got back on a firm financial footing. That's over now. Listen, in 2026, HMRC are fast, and it is costing UK directors like you very dearly. So if you're behind on VAT, PAYE, corporation tax, combination of all three, the biggest threat to your company isn't suppliers or competitors, it's HMRC. Now, today, they're responsible for around 60% of the winding up petitions that are going into court. And those numbers are expected to rise throughout the rest of 2026. Now, on top of that, HMRC have teamed up with the Insolvency Service and Companies House, and it's to crack down on what they call contrived insolvencies. Basically, directors who are using insolvency processes like liquidation and administration to avoid tax debt. And the plan isn't a vague plan. It includes upfront payment demands, more directors being made personally liable for company tax debts. And it is not something that we've heard from Dave down the pub. It is a stated government policy objective. So if you're a UK director carrying tax debt in 2026, you are operating in one of the most aggressive HMRC enforcement environments that we have ever seen. Now, what I'm going to tell you about now is exactly what HMRC does once they start to take action against your company, step by step. Now, if you don't understand this process, you probably can't quite grasp how much time your business actually has before things are taken out of your control. Now, most directors who've got HMRC arrears, they think it will take a long time before it becomes a big problem, okay? Because in the past, you've always been able to get plenty of time with HMRC and plenty of warnings before things got out of hand. You start with a missed VAT payment. Listen, I've been there. You ignore the reminder letter because you intend to get it sorted next quarter. It's no big stress. You've been here countless times before, always got back on your feet again. Now, if you do that, in the background, penalties have started. You're going to hit with 3% of the VAT outstanding at 15 days overdue. Then you're going to be hit with another 3% penalty on whatever is still outstanding on day 30. Plus, You're getting it with a daily penalty that accrues at an annualised rate of 10% on the outstanding balance until it's paid. That's not to mention interest, which currently in April 2026 is 7.75%. This is expensive. And if letters go unanswered, HMRC just escalates. Listen, they can register a CCJ against your company, but more likely there'll be an enforcement agent at your business, okay? And we're seeing more and more that these agents are now levying on goods. Essentially what it means is they take a note of all your company's assets, you sign it. If you don't pay HMRC in full in about 30 days or so, they'll come and take the assets from your business. I've seen it in garages, I've seen it in restaurants, I've seen it in estate agents. Like they literally come in, remove your assets and then sell them at auction for tuppence halfpenny. Now, once all this has happened, or say it's been threatened, and you've not had your assets seized, the next thing that can happen is a stat demand. Now, a stat demand basically gives you 21 days to either pay what's owed or formally dispute the amount. And if you don't respond, the next thing is something called a winding up petition. And if a winding up petition is served on your company, it can be advertised, and the moment it gets advertised, your bank account gets frozen. So you won't be able to pay your staff, you won't be able to pay suppliers. There's not many businesses that I know who can trade through without a company bank account. And over the years, I have spoke to countless of directors who never thought that this would happen. And it's one of the hardest places to be for a director, because in 99% of cases, it could have been avoided. And there's another thing to consider. Once that winding up petition has been served, your window for negotiation with HMRC is effectively closed. And that's, in a nutshell, is the escalation model. Now, every stage that you pass is a stage that you can't return to later. And the lesson here is, if you've got HMRC arrears and they're getting out of hand, you've got to take advice and actually put together a realistic plan for dealing with the arrears while you're still in control. Now listen, if anything I've said to you so far has pricked your conscience and made you think, you know what, I want to speak to them, go to the comment section in the video. There's a link at the top, put your details in and one of my team will call you today. We've got over 700 and odd 5-star reviews on Trustpilot with the best rated company who does this in the UK. We offer free and impartial advice. If you don't really want to speak to anybody, but you want to find out more about insolvency, underneath that link is another link. And if you put your details in there, I think I only want your email address, we'll give you a free guide on UK insolvency. Okay. Now I'm going to cover a specific HMRC legal power that most directors have never heard of until it arrives in the post. It's the point where HMRC can stop pursuing a company for the company tax debt, stops being a company problem and starts becoming a personal problem, okay? So if you're carrying HMRC tax debt in your company, do not skip this next part, okay? Most directors will set up a limited company for a reason, limited liability, okay? The issues stay with the company. If things go wrong, the debt stays with the company and you as the person are protected. And that is true, but only up to a point. Because HMRC has a tool called a personal liability notice, and it's being used more than ever in 2026. And what a personal liability notice does, it basically makes you, as the director of the company, personally responsible for specific company tax debts. Now, the most common one is unpaid national insurance contributions. And in plain English, it can pierce that limited company shield and put the liability directly on you, the director. And if you can't pay it personally, HMRC can pursue bankruptcy. Now, let me give you a real life example. So there was a director that we spoke to, I'm not going to use his name. He ran a construction business for over 10 years, good reputation, good track record, paying HMRC. But basically cash got tight after 2020. And he did what a lot of directors do. He prioritised paying staff, paying the wages anyway, and certain key suppliers, and he pushed HMRC to the bottom of the list, okay? But genuinely, he thought that he'd catch up once the next run of contracts landed. But the work didn't pick up fast enough. And those of you guys and girls who are in construction know what I'm talking about. Lots of contracts have been pushed back. Some have been kiboshed altogether. Now, the company eventually ended up in something called a compulsory liquidation. They got basically wound up by the HMRC. And 6 months later, a letter landed on his doormat. It was a personal liability notice for the unpaid NI. The company was gone, but that tax debt wasn't. And he came to us at that point and he sort of explained what was going on. But we said, listen, there was very little we could do. Because once that notice is issued, you're no longer dealing with company debt, you're dealing with personal debt. So here is the takeaway. Limited liability protects you in most cases, but it isn't unconditional. And understanding where that protection can end, way before you're forced to find out the hard way, is essential, okay? So, now you know what HMRC can do. You know when they can hit you personally. So next I want to show you the biggest mistake directors make when they fall into HMRC arrears. And it's the most common. They just ignore HMRC. But HMRC don't go away. Every letter you don't open, every call you don't answer, it doesn't pause the situation, it actually speeds it up. Because ignoring HMRC is one of the easiest ways to turn a manageable tax debt into a stat demand, or then even worse, into a winding up petition. And look, listen, I'm not here to judge you. I get why it happens. You're scared to open the letters because you don't want to see what they say. You ignore the phone calls because you don't know what to tell them. You feel like if you pick up the phone, you're just admitting you've lost control. I've been there myself. Like, my business became insolvent. I had to use an insolvency process over 10 years ago, and I owed HMRC money. They were one of my largest creditors, and I avoided them. And it's not because I didn't care, it's because I didn't know what to say. We're frightened to death. But listen, here's the lesson. Speak to HMRC early. Like, most HMRC officers aren't out to get you. They're not there to catch you out. Certainly not on that first call. They deal with small business owners every day, and they understand how cash flow problems can affect all sorts of business. Now, even if you can't afford to pay in full, call them, give them an update. By telling them that you are struggling and that you're going to keep them updated allows you to stay. If you're staying in contact, you can stay in control. And if all you can manage right now is a small token payment, that's better than silence. Because for me, it shows goodwill and it keeps you in the conversation. If you just bury your head in the sand and they don't hear anything, escalation will just ensue. And there's the other big mistake, waiting until a winding up petition hits your desk before you actually reach out for help. Now, here's the thing that makes me a little bit different in this industry, okay? I've been on the other side of this. Like I said earlier, years ago, I had to put my company through an insolvency process. So I know what the sleepless nights feel like. I know what it's like carrying around the stress of a business that's failing, trying to act normal in the day while everything is collapsing in the background. Like, literally, in the day I weren't so bad. You know, I was expecting phone calls, answering emails. It's when I went home alone at night, I felt alone. I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about it. I felt shame, like I'd let everyone down. And I remember not asking for help for a long time, because in my head, asking for help meant admitting how serious it had become. But what I now know, and what I wish I'd have known back then, is that waiting never protected me. It just reduced my options. Because if a winding up petition lands, some of the best routes forward for you might have already closed. Now, a time to pay arrangement is often one of the best ways to deal with HMRC issues. Well, that's off the table. And if it's a winding up petition's been issued, administration's no longer available. Certainly not as a director-led administration, okay? So the lesson's this. Getting help early, it's not an admission of failure. It's a decision that might give you more control and open the options of a decent outcome. Now, for us, we probably get 500 inquiries a month. We don't do 500 insolvencies. And most people are ringing us thinking, oh my gosh, we're never ever going to get out of this. The directors who get through these challenges generally have one thing in common. They stop carrying it alone, okay, before they run out of time. Which brings me to a really specific mistake directors will make with HMRC. And it's dangerous because it feels like you're doing the right thing, okay? Now here's the mistake. You get a letter from HMRC. They call HMRC straight away. They owe, I don't know, 50 grand in VAT. They explain, listen, it's been tough, we're really struggling, we're doing our best to sort of get things back on track. I need a little bit more time. And then they ask for a payment arrangement. And HMRC will go, yeah, we'll give you time to pay. And they suggest clearing the arrears of, say, over 6 months. And the director agrees, even though deep down they know it's not realistic. And then one or two things will happen. They miss a payment on the time to pay, or they keep up with the plan, but they fall behind again on their current VAT PAYE as it becomes due. And suddenly, this whole thing collapses and HMRC escalates. And this happens all the time. And it happens because directors don't treat a time to pay request for what it really is. It's a negotiation. And like any negotiation, the outcome depends on how well you've prepared before you pick up that phone. So the lesson is simple. Before you call HMRC to ask for a time to pay arrangement, prepare. Go in there knowing what can your business afford to pay them in a bad month, not in a best case scenario. How long do you realistically need and why? Exactly what is the incomings and outgoings of the business? What does it look like? Good case, worst case, likely case. And then you offer a repayment proposal that is realistic and you've got some evidence to back it up if they want to ask it. Now, for me, I think it's important to tell them in clear terms, why did the debt arise and what has changed so it's not going to happen again next quarter. Now, I want you to remember this. If HMRC force you down this compulsory liquidation route, in most cases, they're going to get very little back or nothing at all, right? So you've got a little bit more power than you think, okay, if you can present a credible plan. Right, what I want you to do now. If you've got HMRC debt, but you've got no formal enforcement at the moment, right, this is a good position, okay, because you've got loads of options. Start with two things. I want you to get the full picture of what you owe. Not a rough back of a fag packet calculation, the exact figures across every tax debt. What do you owe in VAT, PAYE, corporation tax, NIC. And number two, build a clear cash flow forecast. Look ahead in your business. What does the next 6 months look like? 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And I know it's really hard to perhaps go past the 6 months, okay? But I want you to give your best effort here. Now, these two bits of information are the foundation for every decision that you're going to make next. And I don't want you to make any offer to HMRC until you've got them both. Now, if HMRC have been in touch with you and you've not responded yet, you want to respond quickly. You don't want to put it off. With HMRC, early engagement, even if you can't pay immediately, right? Even if it's a call to say, listen, I've got your letter, I know there's an issue, I just want you to give me 7 days, 14 days. What it does, immediately it shows to them that you're cooperating. Now, the system HMRC operates, it's designed to escalate things when they don't hear anything. Now, if you've received something called a stat demand, you've got 21 days before things go nuclear. You've got to get specialist advice immediately. And if you've been threatened with a winding up petition, or, you know, God forbid you've actually received one, you've got to pick the phone up now. Like, don't watch the end of the video. Pick the phone up now. I'm not exaggerating. You might have only days left before it gets advertised. And once it's advertised, your accounts are going to be frozen. Suppliers are going to stop wanting to supply you. And I've worked with directors who called me the same day the petition arrived, we've still got time to look at all the options. Now, one of the options is we can get an insolvency solicitor involved, speak to HMRC, and in most cases, HMRC will withdraw that petition on the basis that the company is going to go into a voluntary process instead, voluntary liquidation. You'll have to pay for the insolvency lawyer, might be 1,500 quid. You're going to have to pay HMRC's legal fees up to this point, which are about £900. But you've got options. And I've also spoke to directors who wait weeks after the petition lands, assuming they've still got time to negotiate. And in a lot of those cases, they just run out of road. Suppliers will find out, they'll stop supplying them, accounts get frozen, business collapses. It's an absolute mess. It's the same petition, it's the same starting point, but it's a completely different outcome. And the only difference was how quickly they acted. So whatever stage you're at, the next step is the same. Get clear on what's going on, how much you owe, and get some advice on where you stand and on what the real options are. Now, listen, if you found the video helpful, please subscribe, leave a comment, I'll respond to it personally. But if you're dealing with HMRC arrears right now and you want to speak to me and my team, there is a link at the top of the comment section. Put your details in, no pressure, no obligation. It's just a conversation about what your options are. And if you've enjoyed this video and you want to find out more about how you can set up a time to pay arrangement with HMRC, go and click that video up there and we'll go into the ways that you can set up a time to pay arrangement in great detail. So by the end of that video, you can pick the phone up and hopefully get a decent outcome. Thank you. Chris Worden.